We have so much to catch up on, so let's get into it. Last video was a bit of a deficit introduction. It was end of May and I was very optimistic. I had all of these plans in terms of like physique transformation and just was really motivated to start that journey, which you guys loved and I got a really good response from. So I'm really grateful for anyone who found me from that video and also for your support in the comments. I read everyone's comments and I'm always so grateful for you being here. But things have not gone to plan, and I wanted to kind of share that because I think this is like an important part of life where you can start with a lot of motivation towards certain goals and then life be lifing and you can have little obstacles or setbacks or things don't go the way that you're expecting. And I was kind of pushing off making this video because I was like, I don't really feel like I had a good enough update for you. And I also just, as I said, things that I spoke about in the last video didn't pan out the way that I wanted in that timeline. But then I thought, I think this is really important to touch on that because I know someone else who's listening to this would also potentially relate to the feeling of being derailed when you have a certain goal. So I wanted to run it back. I have notes. I want to get into it. What's happened between the last video, end of May, and then today. So a bit of a background. We started this recomp / deficit phase really strong, really consistent with nutrition, with steps, with all of the things, and I was feeling highly motivated. But internally, I was feeling like something was a bit off. It was really frustrating because on the outside, I know that I present really healthy, energized, I'm getting all of the things done. So I was finding it really challenging to feel internally like that wasn't the case. So the kind of symptoms that I was dealing with, and sorry if this is TMI, but this channel is for the girlies and this is a safe space. So I don't really believe there is a TMI, but essentially in June, and pretty much for all of June, I felt the way that you feel, or I typically feel 3 to 4 days before my period when my mood was all over the place. I feel really bloated. I feel really off. Like I felt those symptoms that I have tracked forever using the Clue app that tracks my cycle, which was really frustrating because I wasn't used to feeling that way. Now, alongside that, I had a couple other symptoms, one of those being heavy cycles and clotting and bleeding for longer than I was used to. And I actually tracked this back to starting in February or March, that heavy bleeding that I was used to. So that was something else that was a bit suspicious. In addition to that, I was feeling this like lower body bloating. I will include some images that I took and videos that I took of that process because I was like, something's wrong here and I wanted to document it. So I was feeling that like lower body bloating, was feeling off, was feeling really inflamed, and then was just kind of struggling a little bit. So what kind of sparked me deciding, okay, I want to do something about this because it's really hard to be feeling that way, but then also trying to pursue, a body recomp goal and all of that when you're like something, I feel like I'm feeling a lot of resistance towards this goal. So essentially a bit of a summary of that process. So I went to the GP and I kind of just explained those symptoms. I did blood test number 1, and just so you guys know, June was the theme of testing because I just wanted some answers. So got a blood test came back fine. Then I got a pelvic scan came back fine. The more detailed or deeper pelvic scan that I wanted actually had a 8 to 10 week wait. So I was kind of a bit stuck because I didn't really want to feel this way for another 8 to 10 weeks while waiting for more answers. I got blood test number 2, that also came back fine. I tried to see a gynecologist that I wanted to see in Melbourne, but they had a wait list until end of November. Went to see another gynecologist and there was a little bit of a wait, but it wasn't as long, so still waiting to do that. And then in the interim, I was just doing a bit of research as to what could be wrong. So first thing I was thinking is maybe fibroids or something that's kind of just internally, off. Then I thought maybe endometriosis because I have a family history. My mum had endo and I thought that the symptoms aligned with that. So that was my other kind of potential thing. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole of researching if there's anything I could do to improve those symptoms during that time. And then I decided, because of the wait and because of just wanting answers as soon as possible, I paid out of pocket to get an endometriosis specific MRI in Melbourne. So I got that scan on a Friday, and on a Monday my GP messaged me and told me to come in, and she said she was really glad I got that scan after all, because they detected, and I don't want to say this wrong, adenomyosis as well as suspected endo. So as a definition, because again, I want to help educate and I don't want to get anything wrong. So adenomyosis and endometriosis are distinct chronic gynecological conditions defined by a misplacement of tissue issued to the uterine lining. Adenomyosis involves the tissue growing into the muscular wall of the uterus. That's what they detected. Whilst endo involves endometrial-like tissue growing outside the uterus on other pelvic organs, which they also detected or suspected that they can see. So one, I'm really glad I pushed for multiple GP visits and scans, because it's essentially just a lesson in trusting your gut and knowing that something is off, even though, again, there was a bit of resistance during that process. And I felt like I was just having to advocate for myself quite a lot. Now, when I left that GP appointment, I kind of felt relieved, which is a bit odd because you figured out that there is something wrong with you that could potentially impact your fertility and also quality of life. So that was an interesting feeling. But then also from going for like 4 to 6 weeks of feeling like something's off and no one really understanding, it was a bit of closure to be like, okay, now I know that there's an issue, now we can actually do something about it. And my brain works that way. Like if there's a problem, I'm like, problem solution. I think what I was struggling with in June was like problem, but don't know what it is, so I don't have a solution. So I'm not sure if anyone else relates to that. But essentially this kind of derailed, and what I wanted to get into, my whole recomp focus, because yes, that was something that I really want to achieve this year, but having, testing and feeling off, it's just kind of made it a bit of a secondary goal that I have. So I'll get into that again in a second. But essentially, something that I really identified during this process, a couple things. One, I identified the privilege that I had of being able to access and pay for out-of-pocket and MRI to get answers sooner. And I kind of felt like that's pretty wrong in terms of, if I couldn't have done that, I potentially would have had to wait 3 more months dealing with some of those symptoms and not having answers and feeling really frustrated. And that just doesn't feel fair. My second kind of realization was that feeling off, but presenting as fine is quite challenging, and you really need to know what resources to look for and kind of what your options are. And that's why I want to, with this video, try to provide as many, evidence-based links and resources in the description to kind of help you, because if this video helps one other person experiencing some of the symptoms that I had, then that would be a win in my books. And yeah, I just felt like in those first GP visits, and I went to the GP 4 times in June, in those first 3 visits, I was just told to take the OCP, the oral contraceptive pill. And the problem that I had with that is I wasn't getting to the root cause. And I kind of wanted to know, like, other than just like easing some of those symptoms, what was the actual outstanding reason that this is happening? And I think that it's really easy to kind of look at the quick fix in that sense. And again, I understand and sympathize with that, but I really feel like it's important to, if you want to really just push for more answers and more testing so you can kind of get the underlying issue uncovered. And that's how I really wanted to, that's what I really wanted to do. So I was just really in my feels, I think, in June, just being like, wow, you really have to advocate for yourself. It's a bit challenging when you're internally feeling a certain way, but no one really understands. And then thirdly, I was like, okay, what's next? What do I do next? So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. By the time of making this video, it's the 31st of July. I go to Bali tomorrow. My plan today, to be honest, was to take before and after photos and to kind of have, a decent transformation of the goal that I had when I initially started this phase. But I really didn't want to do that and have that pressure on myself while also figuring out my health issues. So I'm just going to put a pause on that until later in the year. But it is something that I'm definitely really motivated to do, and I will come back to. So expect a part 3 to this video. Now, what I'm currently focusing on is I've made a couple dietary changes that are aligned with the recommendations of managing endo. So that looks like following a low inflammation diet. I don't really want to kind of make any bold claims about that being life-changing just yet, because I've only just started it, but I am seeing promising signs. And that looks like following similar to what I was before. So like, I don't eat dairy anyway, but whole foods, a high focus on healthy fats, nuts, seeds, a decent amount of fiber, and there's a few other things that I can make another video about if you're wanting, but that's kind of what I'm doing lifestyle wise. In terms of training, I mean, I consistently love training and have trained 4 times per week this year, strength training that is. And then steps, I get about 10,000 steps per day. So I think all of those things are a positive thing for my body, and I am feeling some improvements. Alongside that, I've also seen a naturopath who's given me some supplement recommendations to, again, support endo and some of those things. So I'm taking magnesium, zinc, and a few other things that I think it's just going to take time to see the full effect of that. And then in addition to that, I'm going to see a gynecologist in November to probably do a laparoscopy and get a definitive answer on the extent of the endo, what stage it's at, how that's going to impact potential fertility issues and things like that. So I'll have more answers then. So that's kind of what I have mapped out between now and November, is just to continue doing those things that I love, the strength training, the movement. I'm also loving Pilates a couple days per week. Continue to modify my nutrition and take those sups to support some of those symptoms I was feeling, and then reassess. And then when the time is right, I will push more of a deficit phase again, because I will feel a lot better about doing that when I don't have this kind of distraction, because at the end of the day, my health is my main priority. So that's pretty much my update. Wasn't the update I was wanting to give at this point, but it's the update that I am going to give because this is life. And I really hope that this video was helpful again for anyone who potentially has some sort of setback on your own fitness journey at the moment. I'm really excited to go hard on like recomp and fat loss later in the year once I've kind of sorted out some of the things that I'm dealing with at the moment. And I'm really excited to take you on that journey with me. Again, like I said at the start of this video, I'm so grateful for the support on this channel so far. I really would love to upload more frequently in this space and also provide more value. So if you do have any suggestions of videos you'd like to see off the back of this one, whether that be just a day of eating, whether it just be having a chit chat and you guys ask me a Q&A or anything along those lines, let me know in the comments, and thanks for being here.